Good morning again. I'm Maurice Barratt and I've got a new food for thought. I've been reading Hebrews in my private devotions and I came across 3 verses in Hebrews 12. Let me read them to you. I want to talk about Esau and losing his inheritance. Looking diligently lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and therefore many be defiled. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person, as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For you know that afterwards, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. So it seems as though Esau crossed the line. It was irreversible. He made his decision and he couldn't go back. And although he changed his mind and repented, he couldn't find a way back. So my thought was, is it the same for us? I know we're in the new covenant, not the old one, but is there a line we can cross where we lose our inheritance? Well, I believe there is. Let's look at what our inheritance is. It's not in this life for sure, it's when Jesus comes. Because Jesus has not inherited his inheritance yet. He's waiting, he's at the right hand of God, waiting till his enemies become his footstool. What's Jesus worthy to inherit when he comes with the kingdom to reign for 1,000 years? I'll read you from Revelation 5 verse 12. The angel said with a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power, riches, wisdom, strength, honour, and blessing." That's what Jesus will receive when he comes again. But we'll receive the same because Paul says we're co-heirs with him. So everything Christ will inherit, we will inherit. That's our inheritance. We can't have it now. Romans 8:17. And if we're children of God, then heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be we suffer with him, that we may be glorified together. Did you notice there's a condition to inheriting with Christ? Suffering. If so be you suffer with him. We must suffer with Christ just as Esau would have had to suffer the hunger he felt after his hunting trip, if he's wanted to inherit the birthright. He couldn't handle it. He wanted it and he wanted it now. Well, our inheritance is the same as Christ, to reign with him for 1,000 years as his bride. All that Christ inherits, we'll inherit with him. And David prophesied about Christ, and he said in Psalm 2:8, "Ask of me, and I'll give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession." Christ will inherit all things. He'll rule the nations with a rod of iron. And one of the churches of Revelation, to those who overcome, they'll rule the nations with a rod of iron. So it's if you overcome, if you suffer with Christ. There's conditions if you don't sell your birthright. David prophesied, Psalm 2:8, "Ask of me, and I'll give you the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost of parts of the earth for thy possession." Well, Esau lacked patience, didn't he? He couldn't wait, and he sold his birthright for a mess of pottage. Well, that was the old covenant. How do we sell our birthright? Well, exactly the same. We don't only need faith to inherit the promise, we must have patience as well. Hebrews tells us, chapter 6, verse 11, "And we desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end, that you do not be slothful, but followers of them." And we've got the example we call them the heroes of faith. I like to say the examples of faith, who through faith and patience inherit the promises. So many preachers are saying, live your best life now. have the kingdom now. They think the church is the kingdom, and the church should be full of blessings and prosper and have status and all the things, take over the world for Jesus. But that's what Esau wanted. He wanted it before the time. He couldn't wait. The prodigal son was the same. He couldn't wait for his inheritance, and he wasted it. And although he repented, he couldn't get it back. His inheritance was lost forever. When his father died, he would have no inheritance. And it's an example for us. If you want your inheritance now, you can't have it later. Either we'll have our best life now, or we'll live as pilgrims and strangers, as the Bible tells us. Let me read you what Peter said. 1 Peter 2:11. Dear beloved, I beseech you as pilgrims and strangers, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against your soul. Well, the things of the world are very attractive. Status, possessions, all those things, blessings, honour. But we've got to deny ourselves, take up our cross, follow Christ, live as pilgrims, suffer with him, if you want to get your inheritance later. So the time's gone. Let me encourage you. Look for a city whose builder and maker is God, as those examples of faith. The New Jerusalem, the bride. And take your eyes off the possessions and your status and the things you desire in this life. And you'll gain the inheritance when Jesus returns with his kingdom. You make your choice. You want the kingdom now or the kingdom later. Let me encourage you. Don't sell your inheritance now. Wait for it. Suffer with Christ. Well, time's gone. Have a blessed weekend. Keep your eyes on the coming kingdom and keep thinking.